every day to the world and to your heart. Open up your eyes and let your spirit start. Say yes to the dreams you hold inside. Let your soul be your guide.
In today's complex mortgage world, finding the right direction can be challenging. That's where Lighthouse Advisors comes in. With over 25 years of experience, we provide fractional leadership and executive oversight, guiding companies through transitions, growth, and innovation. From IMBs to brokers to credit unions to tech firms, our team of seasoned professionals is here to shine a light on solutions, ensuring your business thrives in every environment. At Lighthouse Advisors, we don't just guide, we empower. Together, let's create a ripple of success across the industry. Email us today at laura@lighthouseadvisors.com. Thank you for joining us today for another episode of Wednesday Wisdom. Today, we are joined by the absolute incredible Tanya Blanchard. She is the president of Madison Chase Capital Advisors. Tanya, thank you so much for joining us today. We cannot wait to hear your wisdom.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Laura, for having me. I'm super duper excited. We usually see each other at the Mortgage Bankers Conference, so it's nice to talk and, just really get to know each other even more. So I'm excited to be here.
My pleasure. All right. So Tanya, we love to kick it off.
Okay.
In our lives, we learn lessons. We get pieces of advice. We're mentored. We learn from people we work with and are even, shaped by our families, as they mold us. And I'd love to hear, what is something special to you, a lesson, a piece of advice that you had taken and applied to your life?
Well, you know what? My dad recently passed. It's been a year, but you know what he always said to me when it was time to make a decision? I would say, Dad, I have this opportunity. He would say, are you comfortable? If you're comfortable, you're not growing. So that is my piece of advice, that if you're comfortable, you're not growing. And I think in this industry, you can get comfortable. You can get used to making X amount of dollars, coming in, working for the same company. And when you're comfortable, you're not growing. So that is really how I have how I've evolved in life. If I'm comfortable, I'm not growing, and it's time. So I'm always happy to step out my comfort zone, because that's really where the gift is. That's where you're going to soar, and life is short. So you got to make it worth it.
Oh, I love that. And I love that you made that shout out to your dad. That's such a special piece of advice. And you know what? It's so true. Mm-hmm. We get into that comfort zone and we kind of just repeat, right? We repeat. And when you even mentioned about making a certain level of income, I love the story, and I can't think of which person actually said it, but they speak about the thermostat, that how much money we make in our lives, we kind of get that comfort, right? We get to that temperature where we're like, I'm good. Yeah. Vacation. I can pay the bills. I got some extra spending money.
Right.
I'm comfortable. And maybe we're not pushing as hard to go over whatever that number is, right? Because you remember when we first started in this business, right? We were so driven and so passionate, and we were, or when we were first starting out in our careers, right? But then you kind of get to that level and you're like, I'm good. This is great. I'm doing well. But we can't. We have to push ourselves to learn new things and to push into that stage where you're a little scared, right?
Right.
Like, wait a minute, I don't really know this, right?
Right.
So how do you encourage people, Tanya, to stay on that road of being a little scared?
Well, I think, if you are truly living your passion and living what you are really put on this earth to do, your purpose, then that's just life. And I think one thing that in the mortgage industry we can all say, we got comfortable. you talk about our thermostat. We had a thermostat of just, if you think about after, let's just say 2018, just 2016 on, everything, it was just kind of back to normalcy. And I always tell people, I think it's Proverbs 22:17, but I didn't listen. A prudent man sees danger and takes refuge, where a simpleton keeps going and pays the price. And I think when rates jumped, I think I was a simpleton. I really didn't think, you just kind of, because everything was just flowing for so long that you just didn't expect it. So for me, I think we have to think about not only how comfortable we are, but we have to think about the future and know that things in our industry can change like that.
Agreed. I mean, we don't even want to, we can go on for days.
Oh, absolutely.
Even speaking about, look at the technology. I mean,
yes.
my goodness, when you think of how fast the AI is evolving and changing it. And you know what? I've had this conversation with numerous people, like especially in the last week, where when the internet came out, it was slow. Like, it first came up where, you would see websites being advertised. You'd be like, okay, that's cool. But then, it took many years before it absolutely blew up, right?
Right.
Not AI. AI is changing, by the second. It's changing. As fast as something happened yesterday, today, it's completely different. It's evolving and moving that fast.
Here's something funny on Instagram. Someone was actually talking about using AI for the Bible and the Word, and they were discouraging it. I didn't even think of that. Just imagine people are going to AI for that. Not just, they're going to AI for everything.
Everything.
They are going to AI for you name it. We talk about it. You've got them calling you to refinance. You've got them calling you to take a loan application. There's certain things that the bot can't say or do, but they're out there.
They are. And it's actually funny you said that. And speaking of dads, we built onto our house, and my father lives above me. And just yesterday, it's actually funny, with speaking of dads, my father comes into my home office yesterday, and he says, Laura, I was just listening to something where they said in the state of Arizona, they're using AI to fight crime. And he's like, how are they doing that? And I'm like,
I don't know.
I didn't know, but it was so cute because here, this 86-year-old man, right, is listening, going,
how?
Now.
That's crazy.
But that's how fast and everything.
Everything. It really has, taken over. It really has.
And we have to adapt. And we have to change.
We have to adapt. But one thing that AI is never going to replace is your personality in person. It's not going to replace your intelligence in person. You can, jazz up a resume, send that letter. When you go and meet somebody, do you have subject verb agreement when you speak? So you have to, AI is good for a lot of things, but the bottom line, when you meet somebody in person, they're going to meet the real you.
Agree. And we know the true professionals in the mortgage industry, it is the relationships and that part of it are the reason why they're the true professionals.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah. I agree. All right. So now keep going along.
Okay.
All right. So this one is important to me because I believe that every single person in the world is a leader, meaning it's not a title, not a position. It's not any of those things. We're all evolving and we have to lead ourselves, right? Even us as individuals. Yes. And I'd love to hear from you. What do you think one of the most important traits is in leadership and why? Why do you feel that's important?
I think compassion and empathy. And then in our mortgage industry, I think education and teaching is really how you're a leader. And that is one of the reasons why I started Madison Chase Academy and why I created the course 6 months to six figures, because there was really nothing out there for new loan officers or loan officers that weren't making six figures to really teach them. I think when you are a new loan officer or you're new to the business, it's very hard. And especially after COVID, so many people have training their videos.
Yeah.
They're not live people. They're not, and another thing that I'm finding is that a lot of people that are teaching and coaching, they're not in the business. They're talking about what they did 20 years, 20 years ago. I was 15 years ago, I was so to me, it's important to be, if you're a true leader, you are relevant with the times, with what is going on now. You can't be a true leader. You just talked about how everything's changing. Just think, back in the day, my daughter Madison, we laughed. She used to highlight my loan applications. She remember the highlights, we FedEx them, they FedEx them back. Now everything's online. Yeah. But you still have to be respectful and know that not everybody who does a loan application wants to go online.
True.
So you still have to be respectful and say, well, Laura, what would you like to do? Would you like to take the loan application? I could take it over the phone, or I can send you to my secure website. Those are things that a leader does. And even as an individual loan officer, you are a leader. You are your own leader. You are that client is coming to you for the biggest purchase of their home, and they're expecting you to lead them. Yes. Lead them down a path of education, of knowledge, of a smooth transaction. So every individual loan officer is a leader. They're a leader in their business.
I mean, that's that word that I've used before, professional. We have to be professionals.
Yes.
I use the analogy of healthcare to mortgage because my sister is in the healthcare field. And I always think to myself, when one of us in the family, any of us are sick, well, immediately we call my sister and go, okay, what should we do? Should we go to this? Should we do that? And I always think to myself, isn't it the same thing when it comes to purchasing a home, or whether it's a good time to refinance, or what's the best loan program? You call the professional. Like, you don't call the healthcare provider, you call the mortgage professional, absolutely, the financial advisor.
Yes.
And we have to it's like the doctor or the nurse or the physician's assistant. We need to be ready to help them.
We need to be ready to help them where they are and give them good, sound advice. At the end, it's going to be their decision, but we have to let them know whether FHA rate might look good, blah, 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 but that MI is not going away unless you refinance out. We have to give them all the choices. Just like if you went into the doctor's office and the doctor would say, okay, Laura, based on where you are, you can do this or this, but you have this. And so when a client comes to us, we have to really diagnose their situation.
That's exactly right. It honestly is very similar.
It is.
Right? Because you have to kind of look at everything, right? You got to do the tests. You got to ask the questions. You got to make sure you have all the information, right? The same as if you were like, okay, I need an X-ray, an MRI, a CAT scan. It's the same thing. I need to see your assets. I got to look at your credit. I got to look at your income. We have to look at what is your ultimate result. Right? Are you going to stay in this house? Is this something that, eventually you're going to turn into an investment? Whatever, right? But it's the same thing.
It is.
That's why, as mortgage professionals and real estate professionals, this is what we have to do.
Yes. And I think that that's one of the things that, as a leader, you want to educate anybody that's on your team. And I always tell loan officers, it's great to have friends that are at your same company, but make friends at other companies. That's how you learn. That's really how you learn. You learn from other people. And that's why organizations like Mortgage Bankers Associations is so important, because you get to know your MI providers. There's so many different ways to do MI. It's just not borrow, paid MI, 5% down, 30% coverage. You've got split MI. You've got buy one premium, single premium MI, lender paid MI. So you wouldn't know all of these things unless you have your pulse on all aspects of the mortgage industry.
I always say that, again, going back to the healthcare. if you had a doctor that graduated school in 2000, you wouldn't want him not to be up to date and getting the latest information in 2025. Like, you would want them to be well-rounded and to know all the different latest and greatest.
Yes.
So what you just said, what great advice. Because so many times loan officers think, oh, I don't need to be involved in associations, or I don't need to know what else is going on outside of my organization. That's wrong.
That is wrong. That's wrong. And it's all about relationships. You know, Mickey Sheeling, we were talking the other day, and she was talking about, they just did, Highland Mortgage just did a rally, you know, for the 2-minute blah, blah, blah. And so she said she had to call in a favor. I said, oh, relationship capital. And she goes, oh, yes. She's like, that's a great term, but that's really what we have. We have relationship capital. And just think of how long you've been in the business. And if something, whether it goes wrong or right, you have someone that you can pick up the phone. You have many people that you can pick up the phone.
The most valuable thing I have are those relationships.
It really, really is. It really is. And I think that really is why it's so important to get out of your office and meet other people. You know, if it's a wind down event, it's just, to me, it's critical, because you just don't know when that person that you met, they might not have the answer, but they have the person that knows the answer.
And for everyone out there listening, Tanya and I met because we sat at the same table at lunch at an MBA IMB conference.
Yes.
So just know, going back to everything Tanya and I are saying, yeah, that's what we do.
It's true. It's true. And we got to know each other one-on-one. And national is great, but the IMB is so wonderful because it's smaller, it's intimate. And that's really, that's how we met. Like you said, we sat there at lunch, we talked, you learned about me, I learned about you, and we're still in touch after all these years.
That's exactly right. And that's the goal, because to your point, yes. So I hope everybody's writing down all these tidbits, because these are gold. This is gold here. This is Tanya's laying it down. She's giving you the roadmap. This is it. Before we wrap up with my final question, I do want to ask you about 6 months to 6 figures.
Sure.
So I understand it's, primarily newer loan officers coming in, getting trained. So do you work with different companies?
I do.
Okay, so if XYZ company says, we want you to train our newbies, okay, you do that.
I do that. And then I also train people who aren't producing like they should. Because here's one thing, and I was talking to a big organization, and I said, let's put 50 loan officers in the room, and some of them have been in the business 5 years. How many of them can really go over a closing disclosure and tell you every single line? Right. And that's crucial, because education is everything. So although it's for new people, it's also for people that have been in the business. The best way that you're ever going to calm a customer down when they look at that closing disclosure is to go by it line by line and say, well, your intangible tax, that's $3 per thousand. That didn't change. Your transfer tax, that's 1% of the sales price. Oh, here's your escrow account. That's the biggest increase. Your homeowner's insurance went up by $2,000. We thought it was going to be $2,400. It's $4,400. So you have to, it's little things like that set you apart from everyone. And the more educated you are, the more powerful you are, the more you can do for your clients and your partners.
And they're confident, right?
Yeah.
And the loan officer is confident in being able to communicate that.
Absolutely.
And that, what a difference that makes when you're confident in what you're explaining.
Exactly. And that's why I said, yes, it's good for, and I think I'm actually flying down to a mortgage company next May 7th. And one of the things that they were so surprised, they said, oh, do you still originate? I said, well, yeah, I have my own company. I said, I still originate. I said, and the reason that I do is because I have to know what's going on in the industry. I have to be able to say, oh, this changed, that changed, or you know what? I learned another way to do something. You know, you have to always evolve in this business. No matter how long you've been in the business, you have to evolve and you have to be coachable.
100%.
You have to be coachable. And no matter how much we think we know everything, we don't. We don't. We know a lot. But we can always find something else out, whether it's about a buy down, whether it's whatever it is, there's always room to learn in this industry.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. All right. So Tanya, great stuff. Like I said, total gold. I love to wrap it up with, here's why we're taking out the magic wand. Okay. We got the magic wand. I believe that once we say something, we start the energy of it actually coming true. Okay. So I would love for you to share with everyone listening today. If you could do something, professional or personal, doesn't have to be related to business, with no limits, you knew that it would be successful no matter what would that be?
That would be making Madison Chase Academy the #1 mortgage academy for loan officers in America.
Okay. But you're already on the path of that.
I know. And it's beauty. It's all 50 states. Only thing that ever changes are loan limits. Guidelines don't change state to state.
I love it.
That's a beautiful question. That's a great, I'm happy to answer that question. And I knew that one. You got personal, you got business, but that's something that is really, really a passion, and Laura, and I'll end with this because I know you'll agree. The mortgage industry has allowed us to raise our families and live very good lives. We are really, really blessed in our industry, and we need to get more people in it. Although it's not an easy industry. It's a very stressful industry, but what we've been able to do for our families and for our children and for our quality of life, that's a beautiful thing.
I thank God every day that I believe that a lot of times the mortgage industry finds us.
Yes.
And I say I'm very grateful
it's true.
that it found me.
It's
because
true.
I fell in love with it right away. And I don't ever take it for granted, not one day that goes by. No. And I'm so thankful. And Tanya, thank you for saying that and for sharing that, because you are right. I truly believe that. And I know that you also believe what I believe, that I want to leave this industry better than I found it. And every day, and I know you're working on that too, every day we will work on making sure that when it's time for us to hand it off to the other generations, it will be in good hands and in good shape, and they will be ready to continue forward.
I love that, Laura. I agree with you 100%. That is our goal. And I think that we're on the right path. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. This was absolutely awesome.
Thank you for joining us. And how do people get in touch with you, Tanya?
Oh, I'm easy. Madison Chase Capital Advisors on Instagram, on Facebook, mccapitaladvisors.com, Tanya Blanchard on LinkedIn. In the world of Google, they can find you.
So much. Keep shining brightly, my friend, and be well.
Okay, take care. God bless. Thank you.